In today's episode, Jake leaves New York City, our ka-tet arrives in Midworld, and Eddie remembers the face of his father and his mother. Welcome back to Dark Tower YouTube. I am your host, Michelle McEwen, and at Dark Tower YouTube, we take a deep psychological dive into the magic, the mystery, and the metaphysics of Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower. Welcome back, Dark Tower friends. I missed you. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. We are continuing our book club reading of The Wastelands. We are on, and this is the third book in the Dark Tower series. So spoilers for this book, section 1. No, book 1, Jake, section 2, Door and Demon, chapter 6 through 15. That is what we are covering today. We left Jake in his apartment in New York City. He had had a standoff with his father, those blue eyes blazing, the gunslinger eyes. He laughed himself silly over that A in his final essay, and he decided, I'm leaving, I'm going. This is not for me anymore. So we pick back up with him the very next morning. He arose with the dawn and packed his bag, books from the Manhattan Restaurant of the Mind, the key, of course, some clothes, and his dad's Ruger with some ammunition. So he is out the door. King writes, a stone seemed to roll off his heart as the latch snicked, and a strong sense of anticipation seized him. He didn't know what lay ahead, and he had reason to believe it would be dangerous. But he was 11 years old, too young to deny the exotic delight which suddenly filled him. There was a highway ahead, a hidden highway leading deep into some unknown land. There were secrets which might disclose themselves to him if he was clever and if he was lucky. He had left his home in the long light of dawn, and what lay ahead was some great adventure. If I can stand, if I can be true, I'll see the rose, he thought as he pushed the button for the elevator. I know it. And I'll see him, too. This thought filled him with an eagerness so great it was almost ecstasy. 3 minutes later, he stepped out from beneath the awning which shaded the entrance to the building where he had lived all his life. He paused for a moment, then turned left. His decision did not feel random, and it wasn't. He was moving southeast, along the path of the beam, resuming his own interrupted quest for the Dark Tower. Yay, Jake, he's doing it. He's out there. He's going in search of that hidden highway. That is not the first time we have heard that phrase. We heard it earlier in this book, just a few chapters ago. The second time we're hearing this, so I'm just going to refresh your memory when we heard it before, and we'll keep our ears out listening for it as we continue. This was back when Jake found the vacant lot and the turtle poem written on the wall. King writes, Jake supposed the source of this strange little poem, if not its meaning, was clear enough. This part of Manhattan's east side was known, after all, as Turtle Bay. But that didn't explain the goose flesh, which was now running up the center of his back in a rough stripe, or his clear sense that he had found another road sign along some fabulous hidden highway. So there it is. Also, we are hearing about standing. And King loves standing. Not the first time we've come across that. We heard it twice back in Drawing of the Three. I'm going to remind you, we're going to rewind and go back to when Roland is dying of infection, but getting better, hopefully, because of the Keflex, and Eddie is going through heroin withdrawal on the beach, just them. King writes, only 2 choices here, Roland whispers. Don't know how it is in your world, but only 2 choices here. Stand and maybe live, or die on your knees with your head down and the stink of your own armpits in your nose. Nothing. He hacks out a cough. Nothing to me. Oh, Roland. Later, after Odetta had joined them and Eddie has fallen in love and is worried about their fate, King writes, Eddie seized the rags of Roland's shirt. Are you gonna get her killed? We all die in time, the gunslinger said. It's not just the world that moves on. He looked squarely at Eddie, his faded blue eyes almost the color of slate in this light. But we will be magnificent. He paused. There's more than a world to win, Eddie. I would not risk you and her. I would not have allowed the boy to die if that was all there was. What are you talking about? Everything there is, the gunslinger said calmly. We are going to go, Eddie. We are going to fight. We are going to be hurt. And in the end, we will stand. And the idea of standing spans King's works. From the novel It, we have King writing, get a little rock and roll on the radio and go toward all the life there is with all the courage you can and all the belief you can muster. Be true. Be brave. Stand. All the rest is darkness. I don't know if I can read these. These are very emotional. But we have an entire novel called The Stand, which was written before any of this was written. It was written right before The Drawing of the Three, and The Stand was written before The Drawing of the Three, so this is not a new idea in King's world. In The Stand, you guessed it, people are making a stand against darkness. And King writes, this is Mother Abigail, one of the main protagonists, telling the other protagonist what must be done. I'm changing it slightly because there is a bit of a spoiler in this excerpt. And you know that there is an extended reading list of The Dark Tower. You knew that, right? I made a video about it. And The Stand is on there. It is on there as well. But I'm removing a slight spoiler from this excerpt, so no worries here. I really try to protect y'all against those spoilers. Okay, King writes, you are to go west. You are to take no food, no water. You are to go this very day in the clothes you stand up in. You are to go on foot. I am in the way of knowing that one of you will not reach your destination, but I don't know which one will be the one to fall. I am in the way of knowing that the rest will be taken before the evil man, who is not a man at all, but a supernatural being. I don't know if it's God's will for you to defeat him. I don't know if it's God's will for you to ever see Boulder again. Those things are not for me to see. But he is in Las Vegas, and you must go there. And it is there you will make your stand. You will go, and you will not falter, because you will have the everlasting arm of the Lord God of hosts to lean on. Yes, with God's help, you will stand. I made it, okay. I'm going to tear up though, okay? It's a theme that King loves. I love it. It just hits you right in the heart and soul. He knows how to get there. If I ever get a tattoo, it's going to say stand and be true. And now we have our friend Jake talking about this as well. All right. Okay, so back to the story. Our ka-tet is moving down the road. Roland tries to give Eddie the key back. Remember, Roland's been keeping it to quiet those voices. Eddie's really scared of messing up the key. He tells Roland, wear it for now, give it back to me when we make camp, I'll work on it at night. And then, abruptly, King writes, something is going to happen, isn't it? Susanna asked suddenly. Eddie glanced up at her. What makes you say so? I sleep with you, Eddie, and I know you dream every night now. Sometimes you talk, too. They don't seem like nightmares exactly, but it's pretty clear that something is going on inside your head. Yeah, something is. I just don't know what. Dreams are powerful, Roland remarked. You don't remember the ones you're having at all? And they're going to have a discussion about Eddie's dreams now. So he's going to recount his version of the dream, where he's talking about Henry and him are playing basketball. He wants to go see the haunted house, the Dutch Hill mansion. And he tells Roland and Susanna that this happened in real life. So he's dreaming it, but it was a real thing that happened. And he says when they went to the Dutch Hill mansion that somebody was there. There's somebody there. He doesn't know who it is, but he's not supposed to look at them. And they're saying, did this happen in real life or was it the dream? And he's like, I'm not sure, but I think it happened in real life. Someone was there. He thinks it's Jake. He acknowledges that they've been sharing dreams, and he knows that he has to finish this key perfectly or else Jake will die. The stakes are big. Eddie is being very honest with them. He's been holding his cards close to his chest, but he is opening up now. He is telling them what he remembers, what he knows, what's going on with Jake, just how big a deal this key is. So here we have Eddie communicating clearly, trusting his friends, very, very good things that we would like to see out of all the characters in this story. And we're going to talk about these traits that Eddie has more than once in this episode. Okay, but we have some side quests to take here. There's some big metaphysical ideas going on, and it's time we talk about them. Telepathy, shared dreams, astral travel, perhaps. Remember Jake tripped over the mechanical whatever, and he woke up in his bed with his knees skinned. We're going to hold our thoughts on the astral travel and talk about that further on down the road, but we do want to talk about telepathy because that's been going on for some time now, and the shared dreams because that also is kind of coming to a head. Telepathy is a type of extrasensory perception. It's an intuitive or psychic ability to share thoughts, content, exchange information directly between minds without any other communication tools. I looked up the origins. What could I figure out about telepathy that I wanted to share with y'all? The Institute of Noetic Study, IONS. Noetic I had to look up because I didn't know that word, and it's a good Dark Tower YouTube word. Noetic refers to things relating to the intellect, mind, or conscious thought. Rooted in the Greek word nous, meaning mind, and it describes experiences or knowledge that rely on deep insight, intuition, or implicit understanding rather than purely logical deduction. We love that here. So that is the Institute of Noetic Studies, and they're talking about telepathy. Now, you want to go look up telepathy on Wikipedia, on any scientific website, they're going to say, it's not real, it's pseudoscience. Why, then, does the majority of the population of the planet have an experience like this? And you're going to just say, that's not real. Well, it's fucking happening, and it's been happening for hundreds of thousands of years across the entire globe. I don't know. I think it's so stupid to be like, that's not real. It's at least worth looking at. Dumbos, okay? Anyway, the Institute of Noetic Studies did a survey because they were very interested in engineers, scientific minds, and their perception of telepathy. So this was a survey that they got email addresses, they sent out probably thousands, they got a couple hundred replies. And what they found was that 70% of the scientists and engineers that they surveyed had a personal experience that they interpreted as telepathy or intuition or something similar. 70% of the scientists, some of whom are saying this doesn't exist, are saying it doesn't exist, but I can tell you about it. Come on. In the same study, 90% of the general population said they had at least one extrasensory experience like this in their lifetime. That sounds about right to me. You've had one, right? You think of the song and it comes on the radio. You pick up the phone and the friend calls you. This kind of thing. You're thinking of your sister and she sends you a text. These are the things. What is that? Oh, it's nothing. It's just a coincidence. Really? What if it happens a lot, more than just one time? It's happened to me a lot of times, and I don't think it's a coincidence. Anyway, most people say they've had an experience like this. There's a spectrum. We're talking about, I thought of a song and then it came on the radio. So it's just a weird coincidence, a synchronicity at this kind of end of the spectrum. Then we're working up to like gut instincts, hunches. Have you ever had a hunch about something? A gut feeling about a person or a thing? And you knew what was going to happen or how it was going to be without any kind of physical evidence. And you were right. Your hunch was correct, okay? And then we're moving into telepathy and clairvoyance and these kinds of things on the far end of the scale. But it's all a spectrum, and most of us can place ourselves somewhere on there. 99% of people who believe in this stuff have experienced these things. That makes sense, right? But 70% of scientists and engineers. So I think that's notable. Also notable, women report experiencing these things in greater numbers than men. Specifically, precognition, extrasensory perception, mystical experiences, telepathy, and after-death communication. This is not surprising. We've talked about feminine traits, the divine feminine, feminine archetypes, the animus, or the anima, these kinds of things. And the traits are about receptivity, intuition, nurture, care, compassion, open-mindedness, flow state, these kinds of things. If a woman is in touch with her feminine side, and this doesn't have to be a gendered thing, there are plenty of men who are in touch with their feminine sides, Eddie Dean being prime example in today's episode. They're displaying these things, and it's like, oh, of course they can talk to the dead because they're open to that. They're receptive, they're intuitive. They're not based in logic, reason, planning, these male, divine, masculine oriented things. So it makes total sense. I have so many examples of this. But here's a good one. I have music in my head all the time. There's always a song going, most of the time. And I had Sgt. Pepper. I'm a big Beatles fan. I was listening to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band probably for 2 hours because sometimes that's just how it is. And my partner at the time started whistling Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I said, "Why are you whistling that?" And he said, what? And I'm like, that song, Sgt. Pepper. Why are you whistling Sgt. Pepper? And he said, oh, was I? And I said, yeah, you were. He's like, I don't know. I just felt like the thing to whistle. And I was like, uh-huh. And I said, I've been thinking about that song for the last 2 hours. Did I sing it out loud? I must have sung it out loud. And he said, no, that's just a coincidence. He didn't believe in this stuff. Anyway, lots of examples like that. Share yours in the comments because we love to talk about these kinds of things here. Let's move on to sharing dreams. And we have to give a nod to Carl Jung and the collective unconscious here, because we're allowing for the idea that there is a shared mind. If we're sharing dreams, we must share a mind. And Carl Jung said, of course we do. It's called the collective unconscious. Now, he didn't invent this. People on the earth have been talking about all of these things for hundreds of thousands of years and saying, of course they exist. We use them regularly. It's part of our spiritual practice. It's part of our religion, etc. Sigmund Freud wrote a paper in 1922 called Dreams and Telepathy. So this is like white Western science that I'm talking about, where we first started putting it out there on the map of these things. So different set of dogs. What the white Western scientists are doing has already existed forever, but they're trying to scientificize it. So he wrote this paper, Dreams and Telepathy. And this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. If you know about this story, you gotta get with me because I just read the periphery. But Sigmund Freud is highly suspicious of this idea, never having had a shared dream experience or encountering any evidence of mutual dreaming in his patients. He believed a connection between telepathy and dreams couldn't be proven, but it couldn't be disproven. I've got to read this paper because that to me sounds bonkers, but like he had to write this and start getting this out. I think he had to do it so that his student, Carl Jung, could be like, ah, yes, now we're talking. Here I'm going to shine. And Freud had this idea of the unconscious mind. Jung also says, yes, there's a personal unconscious. This is where everything we've ever done is in there somewhere. Usually it's just mashed down and we have these repressed desires and guilt and shame, and all of this is in our personal unconscious. But Jung was like, that doesn't account for everything that I'm hearing. There are things that they're talking about that didn't actually happen to them. And when we look across different cultures, people are talking about the same shit. And we're seeing the same symbols show up in different religions, and different stories are very similar across all the world. So again, people have been doing this forever. Jung just started putting words to it, names to it in Western science. So he says there's a collective unconscious, a shared mind that is inherited, and it contains all times, and it's populated by archetypes, which are shared ideas that everybody has. We all have the idea of a hero. We have the idea of the wise old man. We have the idea of the shadow side, the repressed dark side of people. So those are archetypes. I did a whole, if you've listened to the whole, if you've watched, read, listened, watched, if you've read the entire Dark Tower series, I did an episode with my amazing Dark Tower friend Ash where we talk all about the shadow archetype in this series. So go listen to that. But there's big spoilers, so don't if you haven't finished the series. But that's what Carl Jung is up to. One mind connecting the entire human experience. It is timeless. It is inherited. It's cool. Examples, you show people all over the world the color red and you say, what does this make you think of? And they say, anger, rage, war. Why? Why is the color? Why? And Carl Jung says that's the collective unconscious, because red is, that's just what red is. So it gets a little weird. Music, kind of a similar thing where you can play music and that brings up images in people's minds that Jung would say is part of the collective unconscious. And we listen to a piece of music and we're all thinking of the brave warrior or something like that. So there's some kind of extra physicality going on there that could be explained by the shared mind. But we need a shared mind to have these shared dreams. Specifically with the shared dreams, they're also called mutual dreams. This is called dream meshing, dream linking. You've heard about at least the movie Inception, so that is a good example of where we're going to meet up in the dream space. We have intention to do it. We have a job to do that we're going to get done, and that's what's happening there. Okay, so the most common reported type of mutual dream is known as meshing, a meshing dream. Two people's different dreams which share certain elements. So there's a basic foundational level that is the same. The setting is the same, the surroundings are the same, the themes are the same, but things might be slightly different for me and you in this shared dream space. And then in a meeting dream, this is a true meaning of a mutual dream. We meet up and communicate in this shared dream, in this meshing. This, I feel like, is a little harder to come by, but you can find plenty of stories about this. If you go look on Reddit, plenty of people talking about this kind of thing. But this to me feels like this is what Eddie and Jake are doing. They're in a similar space. We're at a basketball court. But in Jake's, we have the portal of the bear. We have the broken mechanical animals. He's got pieces of midworld that are getting filtered into his dream. I don't know if those are in Eddie's dream, but if they are, he hasn't reported that. So I think they're slightly different, what's going on in these dreams. But the outcome is the same. They're both there and they're able to communicate with each other. I think Jake seems to have better recall than Eddie, but I don't know. Like, he's the one that's needing more instruction to know what to do. Back to The Stand. Stephen King loves shared dreams, and that is a big theme in The Stand, where different characters are meeting with each other on the astral plane to talk about what is going on, what do we have to do, getting instruction there, etc. Good stuff. Our ka-tet continues walking, and they find the stone that Jake encountered in a dream, which says, "Traveler, beyond lies midworld." So we are in midworld officially, and that is great. King writes, "What is midworld?" Eddie asked. "One of the large kingdoms which dominated the earth in the times before these. A kingdom of hope and knowledge and light. The sort of things we were trying to hold on to in my land before the darkness overtook us as well. Someday, if there's time, I'll tell you all the old stories, the ones I know at least. They form a large tapestry, one which is beautiful, but very sad. According to the old tales, a great city once stood at the edge of midworld, perhaps as great as your city of New York. It will be in ruins now, if it still exists at all. But there may be people, or monsters, or both. We'll have to be on our guard." So, a little more information about Roland's world. This used to be a kingdom of hope and knowledge and light. What happened? Why are we going to the Dark Tower? I ask that a lot. Why are we going to the Dark Tower? What was this falling apart? What actually happened to take the light away? And he says we'll have to be on our guard. And remember, back in the drawing of the three, that was a refrain. Be on your guard, Eddie. And Eddie was not. And he paid for that more than once. So we're a little nervous when Roland says be on your guard, because bad things are probably about to happen. That night, Eddie begins to carve the key again, but he's not feeling inspired, and he wishes for the first time in months for some heroin. I wanted to pull this out just because I think it could be King showing us a mirror of what he was going through at the time. And Eddie kind of laughs it off and is like, "Ugh, I can't believe this is what I want. I know it's not the answer." And King had been clean, just gotten clean. He admittedly had a drug and alcohol problem. His wife, God bless her, she intervenes and she says, "You got to clean up or we're leaving. I'm taking the kids." And to Stephen King's credit, he did. He got treatment and he has been clean ever since. This was the late 90s. This is when he's writing that book. And so you can imagine somebody just thinking, "Oh man, it's hard writing. If I just had something to get through. I've got writer's block. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Just a little something." And Eddie's feeling that, like, this is hard and there's a lot of pressure. I don't know if I can finish or do it right. If I just had a little something, just a little bit, I could just get through. So I don't know if that's what King was doing, and I would never ask him because that would probably be rude, but it kind of makes sense when you think about the author in that time and place. We flip back to Jake leaving his apartment. He goes to the Met, hangs out for a little while, looks at some Old West pictures, picture of the train going through the Old West, Charlie the Choo-Choo, and all that. He has a moment where he's accosted and he puts his hand around the key, and that allows his mind to clear immediately. And he tells this teacher he's on French leave, which is what Calvin Tower said to him. And his school is called the Marquis Academy. And he's like, what was that about? But Eddie was talking about the Marquis playground or something. And when he was telling Roland and Susanna his story. So these things are filtering through into Jake's mind. The key is allowing for this telepathy to get louder. And it's telepathy that Eddie's not trying to send Jake messages about the Marquis Academy or whatever, but it's getting in there. And it's helping Jake move forward along the path of the beam. And he's going to use that key later to help him get out of a situation. Right now, actually, he goes and gets a hot dog after he leaves the museum, sits down to eat it. A cop comes by. His parents got up. They're like, this kid is missing. He's been acting so weird. They call the cops. So there's an APB out on an 11-year-old white kid with blonde hair in the city now. And in Times Square, he's going to stick out like a sore thumb in New York City of 1977. It's a bit of a seedy place. The cop asks Jake for his ID. King writes, the cop either had his name or had sensed something wrong about him, which wasn't so surprising maybe, since he was the only white in the area who wasn't obviously trolling. Either way, it came to the same. Sitting down here to eat his lunch had been dumb, but his feet had hurt. He'd been hungry, damn it. Hungry. You're not going to stop me, Jake thought. I can't let you stop me. There's someone I'm supposed to meet this afternoon in Brooklyn, and I'm going to be there. Instead of reaching for his wallet, he reached into his front pocket and brought out the key. He held it up to the policeman. The late morning sunshine bounced little coins of reflected light onto the man's cheeks and forehead. His eyes widened. Hey, he said, what you got there, kid? Jake proceeds to observe the hypnotizing powers of the key, and he tells the cop his name is Tom Denby. And you're not looking for anybody named Tom Denby, are you? No, the cop said. Never heard of him. Now there were at least half a dozen people gathered around the cop, all of them staring with silent wonder at the silver key in Jake's hand. So I can go, can't I? Huh? Oh, sure. Go. Go, for your father's sake. So that's cool. So I just like the detail that Jake is like, fucking, I'm hungry, man. Like, can't I just eat my hot dog in peace? Leave me alone. That just feels very grown up to me. Just being in this world is fucking hard sometimes. Just let me eat my hot dog. And then this key is powerful. It doesn't just clear Jake's mind. It hypnotizes people around him. It puts them in a trance. And not only that, it makes them start, Midworld is filtering through to them as well. So we had Eddie's Marquee Academy filtering through to Jake when he was holding the key the first time. And now the cop who's just looking at the key starts talking like somebody out of Roland's world. So this is a powerful thing that Jake found. He gets himself out of Times Square and down to Co-op City in Brooklyn. Roland's ka-tet, back to them, clears the hill and Roland can see the city. They can all see the city and they're imagining the city. And Eddie and Susanna are like, oh, Eddie especially is like, there's people there and they're good. They're maybe Americans and they're going to help us. And Susanna is like homesick only for a second, but then she's like, Eddie and I, we're good and we could never exist in New York City in 1964. So she's not that homesick for it. They spot a stone circle standing on the plain between them and the city. And Eddie intuitively knows that this is where Jake is coming through. And soon. King writes, is it going to happen today? Roland asked. Tonight? Eddie shook his head and licked his lips. I don't know that either. Not for sure. Tonight? I don't think so. Time, it isn't the same over here as it is where the kid is. It goes slower in his where and when. Maybe tomorrow. He had been battling panic, but now it broke free. He turned and grabbed Roland's shirt with his cold, sweating fingers. But I'm supposed to finish the key, and I haven't. And I'm supposed to do something else, and I don't have a clue about what it is. And if the kid dies, it's my fault. The gunslinger locked his own hands over Eddie's and pulled them away from his shirt. Get control of yourself. Roland, don't you understand? I understand that whining and puling won't solve your problem. I understand that you have forgotten the face of your father. Quit that bullshit. I don't care a dick about my father. Eddie shouted hysterically, and Roland hit him across the face. His hand made a sound like a breaking branch. Eddie's head rocked back. His eyes widened with shock. He stared at the gunslinger, then slowly raised his hand to touch the reddening handprint on his cheek. "You bastard." His hand dropped to the butt of the revolver he still wore on his left hip. Susanna tried to put her own hands over it. Eddie pushed them away. "And now I must teach again," Roland thought. "Only this time I teach for my own life, I think, as well as for his." This whole section, we're gonna psychoanalyze it. Are you ready for the psychoanalyzing here? Because there is so much going on about these characters and who they are and who they're not and what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing. It is well worth looking at. Before we get into that, I just want to say, how does Eddie know about the time difference, that Jake's when is going slower than this when? He just knows that somehow, which is a good thing to know when we're trying to get stuff done between dimensions. It's good information. He's very smart. He's very intuitive, and this just continues to grow. He's the most powerful character in the book at this point, I would say, with Jake in a close second, and then probably Susanna, and then last Roland. But let's start psychoanalyzing here. We're going to look really closely. Eddie's job, and this is according to Roland, is to be a midwife to Jake, is to bring Jake through, to have him be born into this world. Roland uses the term midwife. That is a very specific term he's using. And we aren't going to see how that plays out just yet, but it feels right. It feels like that's what's happening. We're bringing somebody through from one place to another, and midwives bring babies through from one place to another. We've talked about the feminine archetypes, the divine feminine. It's been a minute. We did a lot of that back in the Gunslinger, but we're picking up on it here again. We're going to refresh our memories to these things. And remember, this is genderless. All of us, especially Roland, should be trying to create a nice balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. But if you want to get into the ESP shit, you gotta be good with your divine feminine side, with that receptivity and that intuition and that openness, allowing that stuff to come through, and then come out and pass it along. So intuition, otherworldly wisdom, trusting inner guidance, gut feelings instead of relying on logic, receptivity, easily finding a flow state where listening, adapting, finding natural rhythms instead of forcing things into being. Divine feminine is compassionate and empathic. They prioritize deep understanding, unconditional love. This person nurtures themselves and their loved ones and the world itself, Mother Earth itself. And there is this openness, vulnerability actually, where there's a display to be brave and open with one's authentic emotions. To be emotionally honest is part of the gig of the divine feminine. And when we go through that list, we've been talking about Eddie in these ways all along. And again, just getting more and more and more the longer he spends in Midworld. Check, 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 check. If we were to bring the job of midwife over to this list, these qualities, you would want these qualities in a successful midwife. I want a good balance in a midwife. She needs to know her stuff and have a plan and all that too. But there is a flow to birth that cannot be quantified. There are big feelings during birth that it's good to be able to express and to have somebody hear and validate. This is critical, I would argue. So Eddie and the midwife job, we make the Venn diagram and it's just one circle because they're just all hitting those beats. And so this emotional vulnerability, so that's on the list of a good midwife and Eddie. And that is what is starting to happen here, where he's trying to tell Roland what's going on. And he's scared, and he doesn't care about the face of your father shit. He's trying to talk to Roland for real. And Roland literally is trying to just smack that quality out of Eddie, just like it was smacked out of him as a gunslinger in training. There's no room for sharing your feelings or whining, as Roland has termed it, when you're a gunslinger. Making a man feel like expressing emotion is a weakness, that's what we're trying to do as gunslingers. And using violence to drive that out of a boy, yeah, of course. How else would you do it? The whole thing is just completely fucked, very toxic. And it's not the way. And even Roland knows this deep down, which we're going to get to, but even he knows this. And we look at the gunslinger culture and we say, this is a patriarchal, hierarchical society where wealth and power were centered. The gunslingers had it, nobody else did, and that was causing big problems. Why essentially did this place fall? Roland's saying we were in light and it was great. It was great for you. What about everybody else? What happened? But anyway, is the way of the gun so great after all? What's it done for Roland? What's it done for all of his friends? What has it done for his world? Not a lot. Maybe we need to think of other ways of being and other systems of existence. What do you think? So Eddie and Roland are going to have a back and forth. I can't read all of this to you, but it's essentially chapter 15. And Roland gets to the point where he's like, you need to just grow up or shoot me. King writes, "Stop it!" Susanna screamed at him. "Can't you see he'll do it? Can't you see you're forcing him to do it?" Roland cut his eyes toward her. "I'm forcing him to decide." He looked back at Eddie, and his deeply lined face was stern. "You have come from the shadow of the heroine and the shadow of your brother, my friend. Come from the shadow of yourself, if you dare. Come now. Come out, or shoot me and have done with it." It's a mixed bag. I feel conflicted here because what Roland is asking him to do, what he's saying, is powerful. And he is calling Eddie to be a better version of himself. And that is what a teacher does. Does it have to be do that or else shoot me? Is that the other option? Could we do this lesson without the smacking and your whining? Stop the whining. And then the violent option of violence is the other solution to this problem. It's not surprising at all because this is gunslinger culture and Roland is a gunslinger and he's been training Eddie to be a gunslinger. And we know that this gunslinger quality is born into Eddie, and then he's been under Roland's tutelage. So for Eddie, it makes sense that the other option is, or shoot him, like learn my lesson or kill him. I don't think it has to be that extreme, y'all, but that's where we're at. And to Eddie, this is kind of making sense. Okay? So Roland thinks that Eddie's going to shoot him for a second. But then, King writes, his mouth opened and all his despair and terror came out in one groaning cry as he blundered toward the gunslinger. "I'm afraid, you numb fuck. Don't you understand that? Roland, I'm afraid." His feet tangled together. He fell forward. Roland caught him and held him close, smelling the sweat and dirt on his skin, smelling his tears and terror. The gunslinger embraced him for a moment, then turned him towards Susanna. Eddie dropped to his knees beside her chair, his head hanging wearily. She put a hand on the back of his neck, pressing his head against her thigh, and said bitterly to Roland, "Sometimes I hate you, big white man." Roland placed the heels of his hands against his forehead and pressed hard. "Sometimes I hate myself." "Don't ever stop you though, do it?" Okay, so there's that vulnerability we talked about, that openness of expressing emotions. And we're cheering Eddie here because he did not choose the toxic masculinity option of the way of the gun. He didn't choose violence. He chose to share his feelings, to openly express what is going on with him to his friends. He has not been this emotional, I think, since his brother died. He's been holding his cards close to his chest, and now he's sharing it all, and it's all on the table. This is a good thing for friends on an adventure to be doing. But under the gaze of toxic masculinity, this is not a strength, this is a weakness. And Roland surprises us a little bit here. He doesn't talk down to Eddie or berate him. He doesn't say anything more about the whining or the puling. He chooses to catch Eddie as he's falling. He could have stepped back and let Eddie fall, but he doesn't. He catches him. Not only that, but he holds him close, King wrote, and embraced him for a moment. These are the traits of the divine feminine. That receptivity, holding space for other people, for those that we love, listening, caring, nurturing. Little glimpse here. Right there. That is why we continue to read this series. You can't be with a protagonist that you hate, that has no redeeming qualities. Roland has fucked up big time, and we were mad at him, and some of you probably still are, but we soften him, we stay with him, and we stay with the series because of things just like that, where we're like, oh my gosh, he says all these things, and he's big, tough man, but he loves Eddie, and he knows that the way of the gun, the way of violence, that's not the answer to the problem. And he hates himself for continuing these practices, for using these things to teach. He hates himself for it. This is a big moment for both of these characters. Also for Susanna, who, when she receives Eddie, she is just the picture of that feminine archetype of that anima, of that mothering, nurturing energy that is needed in this moment. And the pose even is of a mother and a child kind of crying in her lap. She holds Eddie in that space and makes it safe for him to stand up, which he's going to be asked to do in a moment. And she says she hates Roland because she's like, this is not it. I know this is not the way. And then she says, big white man. That sounds like Detta Walker. I haven't heard, Susanna's joked around a little bit, like white boy, but it's all in jest. But she's angry. And she's directing this at Roland, the white man. And remember how much Detta hated. They both, Odetta and Detta, both hated the really bad man. I feel like that's coming out here, where Detta's just saying like, there you are, not willing to hold space for this person that you love. I just feel like Detta also was the one who was coming forward in these times of great trauma for Odetta to protect, defend, insulate. And she's doing it here for Eddie, but making sure she's pointing a finger at Roland and saying like, this is your fault. It didn't need to happen like this. He could have learned this lesson without whatever the hell this is, toxic shit. Okay. So, we love Roland, and we're still invested in him, and we're still rooting for him. It's brief. He does catch Eddie. He does hold him for a second, but he's just not in touch with that part of himself enough yet. We've seen glimpses of it. He's always second guessing it, shoving it down, repressing it, brushing it off to the side, because that's what he's been taught to do. And it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Eddie needs to stand up now. So Roland says, Eddie, stand up. And he's afraid for a moment that Eddie's not going to be able to do it. And like I just said, I don't think Eddie could have stood up without that moment with Roland. Brief though it may have been, Roland has his back. That was where we saw it. Not in the just shoot me, you're whining and puling. I didn't see it there, but we did see it in that embrace just for a moment. And with Odetta, who is way better at this than Roland, holding space for that huge outpouring of emotion and making it safe and removing the charge from it and just saying, it's okay. I'm here with you in this big thing. This is midwifery. This is it. She'd be a great midwife. She's already so good at this because she's already integrated herself. So we're watching Eddie do this, but just seeing that mirrored in Susanna, I think is wonderful. And because of those things, I think that's why Eddie is able to stand up. Roland is going to give him the key back. King writes, he held the key out to Eddie. Eddie reached for it like a man in a dream, but Roland did not immediately open his hand. Will you try to do what needs to be done? Yes. His voice was almost inaudible. Do you have something to tell me? I'm sorry. I'm afraid. There was something terrible in Eddie's voice, something which hurt Roland's heart, and he supposed he knew what it was. Here was the last of Eddie's childhood, expiring painfully among the three of them. It could not be seen, but Roland could hear its weakening cries. He tried to make himself deaf to them. Something else I've done in the name of the tower. My score grows ever longer, and the day when it will all have to be totted up like a long-time drunkard's bill in an alehouse draws ever nearer. How will I ever pay? I don't want your apology, least of all for being afraid, he said. Without fear, what would we be? Mad dogs with foam on our muzzles and shit drying on our hocks. What do you want then? Eddie cried. You've taken everything else, everything I have to give. No, not even that, because in the end I gave it to you. So what else do you want from me? After a while, understanding began to dawn in Eddie Dean's eyes. Roland nodded. I have forgotten the face. Eddie paused, dipped his head, swallowed, looked up at the gunslinger once more. The thing which had been dying among them had moved on now. Roland knew it. That thing was gone, just like that. Here, on this sunny, windswept ridge at the edge of everything, it had gone forever. I have forgotten the face of my father, gunslinger, and I cry your pardon. Roland opened his hand and returned the small burden of the key to him whom Ka had decreed must carry it. Speak not so, gunslinger, he said in the high speech. Your father sees you very well, loves you very well, and so do I. Eddie closed his own hand over the key and turned away with his tears still drying on his face. Let's go, he said, and they began to move down the long hill toward the plain which stretched beyond. That's where we're going to end the reading, but we're not done talking. We've got some stuff to talk through here. The last of Eddie's childhood is expiring, the loss of innocence, and King likes to write about that as well, that big marker in our lives. This is a very hard emotional thing too, And Roland can feel it. He can hear it, he says, but he tries to make himself deaf, even though it's hurting him too. So we're told that Roland is being affected by this. So that's good. Yes, 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 yes. Roland, yay. But he's trying to make himself deaf to the cries. Not so great. I mean, ultimately, this thing ends with love. But in the meantime, Roland's taking account. Yet again, something he's doing, putting the tower before love. This man that wants to love, that wants to be loved so desperately, like we saw in the last book. And now he has these friends, and he still feels himself, sees himself betraying that love in the name of the tower, and he hates himself for it still. And he just says, how am I ever going to pay for these sins? So he's acknowledging, you want to change? What do you got to do? Admit there's a problem. He's doing that. He's been doing that. We need him to take charge and take some action here of his own free will. And he's doing that a little bit. He caught Eddie. He embraced him. He's getting there. He's getting there. It would be a pretty boring story if he just got there in one book. It's an arc. It's a character arc. Okay, so next, Eddie says, I'm sorry I was afraid. And Roland's like, no, that's not what I need you to say here. And then Eddie realizes he's supposed to go through that gunslinger ritual apology. But then I cry your pardon. I mean, it's like I'm asking for forgiveness. For what? Because Roland's like, no, it's okay to be afraid. It's gotta be that it's not okay to express that. Just like we were saying, that's not it. Expression of emotion is a sign of weakness, period. That is woman stuff. And we smack that out of these boys, literally. There's no place for this open, honest vulnerability under the rule of the guns. The fathers are not into it. And who gives a shit what the mothers think about all of this? I think the gunslingers would have been wise to give a shit what the women think of it, especially Gabrielle Deschain. But, okay, we're talking about midwifery here, the divine feminine. And so we should be giving a shit about the face of our mothers, too. It's got to be both. It can't just be one. If it's just the face of our fathers, we're doomed. It's got to be the face of our mothers as well. And we don't have, I get it. It's not as cool if we say the face of our fathers and mothers. I know, guys. But I'm just talking about character arcs here and what's missing and what's lacking and what needs to happen for salvation, for redemption. And it is remembering the face of our mothers. And Eddie does that. He part of his childhood is going his innocence. I think he is still feeling afraid and maybe is going to be a little less open about it, which is a shame. But I don't think that's gone for good. I don't think so, because Eddie Dean is so strong in these other qualities. We need him to have these qualities, to be a successful midwife. So we don't want him to get rid of those things. And I don't think he has. And again, we're ending with love. Roland saying, I love you too. And he means it, and we know he means it. So not all bad there with that apology ritual. But I don't know that Eddie had anything to apologize for or to cry pardon for. I don't think he did anything wrong there. What do you think? And then once again, I said this already, but just to reinstate, I don't think any of that would have been possible. Eddie's standing up. Eddie is now leading the way. As we leave, Eddie says, let's go. I don't think that was going to be possible without that nurture and love and acceptance and receptivity that he received in those moments. Reluctantly and quickly by Roland, no doubt, and done so well by Susanna, but totally necessary. Okay, so what do you think? That's my psychoanalysis of that part of the story. I think it gives so much insight into where our characters are and where they're going and where they need to go and where they need to be and what they need to be focusing on. Love to hear your thoughts about any and all of that we just talked about. We'll be back. We got to keep reading, chugging on through. We got to get to the Stone Circle. We got to get to the Dutch Hill Mansion. You can't put this book down, I know. It's very gripping. I love it so much. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for liking the video. Thanks for sharing. If you know any other Dark Tower nerds, if you're still listening, you're one of them, and I love you. And I want more Dark Tower nerds to be talking about this kind of stuff. That's all we think about, right? And I'm going to see you again soon, but until we meet again, I do really wish you long days and pleasant nights.